This is the Always More podcast.
And what's up, everybody?
Hey.
This is it, Chris. We're doing it.
I'm pretty pumped about this, man.
Dude, I am too. We have energy drinks, but even if I didn't have energy drinks, I'd be pretty on edge, wired.
Pretty jazzed.
What?
No, I definitely need the energy drink. I would be dead without this.
Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Always More podcast.
Episode 0, technically.
Is that what we're calling it?
I thought so.
Episode 0? But isn't the trailer episode 0?
No, the trailer's just a trailer.
Oh, that tells you so much how much we know about what we're doing.
This is my first podcast. Actually, no, it's my second podcast.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
This is my second podcast.
You're more experienced than I am at this.
I guess.
All right. Well, hey, today we got some great things that we're going to talk to you about. Today, we're going to talk about the Always More pod itself and why we came up with the name and why we are making this thing to begin with. Later up, we are getting to know Chris and I and our bromance and our friendship and how long and why we are friends and how in the world he's, lived with me and how we were roommates and
Just give you guys a glance into our souls so you understand who we are as individuals and who we are in our relationship together, our heterosexual life partnership.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, that's about, yes, thank you. And that's why you're here. And then later in the show, we're going to talk about, just in a little subject of toxic masculinity.
Yeah. So I'm sure most of you have dealt with this in some manner. If you're a guy, obviously this has shaped who you are growing up, being part of this country, being part of the world where we have to live with all this toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
So you'll get to, even if you feel like you don't have a real connection to it, you'll kind of get a sense of what's going on, and you might hear a bell ringing in the back of your head. That sounds familiar. If you're a woman, obviously you've had to deal with this in more than one way. So you get to look at the nearest man and just say, I told you so.
Yeah. And so, we got all that stuff to talk about, and I'm really excited. I know it's kind of like a heavy thing to talk about in the end, but I think it's gonna be really good. But also at the very end, I almost forgot to write this in the show notes. Actually, I did forget to write in the show notes, but I remembered is we're going to answer questions from people who listen they haven't listened yet, but we're answering questions that people have asked us.
Right. The pre-listen questions.
The pre-listened. So first off, Chris, how are you, my friend, my brother, my shining light? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Pretty tired, but that comes with being an adult.
Whew.
So
a parent.
Yeah, when
father.
we first met, we were young and dumb and bright-eyed, and we had all the energy in the world. And now, I think I just gave all that energy to my daughter. So I have none left for myself.
But she's adorable, and she's perfect.
She's the sweetest, yes. The sweetest little energy-draining thing you'll ever find.
All right, well, I'm glad you're good, Chris. I'm glad you're here with me, and I guess this is a good segue to talk about why we are doing this pod and why we are calling it what it is. So, Chris, I want to let you kind of explain this quote and this this phrase that I think I've heard you say since we've been friends pretty much. And so, and that's the phrase, there is always more than this. Can you kind of explain a little bit about that?
Yes. So, it's a phrase that saved my life when I was much younger. We'll get into that in a much later podcast once you guys are already hooked. It's a phrase that I love just for the sheer power of it and the sheer truth of it. Because, regardless of what your situation is, regardless of where you find yourself in life, there's always more. Yeah. If you're doing great, there's always more good stuff. If you're doing horrible, there's always more opportunity to turn it into good stuff. You can sit where you are in whatever situation you're in, or you can move with time, but there's always more. There's always something else. Something's around the corner. Whether it's good or bad is kind of up to you, how you react to it, but there's more for sure.
Yeah. And so when we were coming up with the show name, I had like a lot of different ideas, and I love lists, and I love coming up with, lists of things.
Lists of things.
And so when we were trying to figure out a name, it got really stressful for me because I was like, man, I just want to find the perfect name, the thing that's unique, but also characterizes Chris and I and just all these different things. And so when this phrase, and I think, Chris, you even actually mentioned the name for the Always More podcast, if I'm not mistaken, it kind of just stuck because it's like, man, even if it's not perfect, there's always more.
Yeah.
Like, and that's life. It's like when life isn't perfect, there's always more. There's always more to talk about. There's always more room to grow. There's more room to do more and to explore. And man, that's honestly a good segue as to why we're doing this podcast in the first place.
For me, just because it's cheaper than therapy.
Oh no.
No, I'm kidding. No, we've always wanted to do a podcast, man. We love just kind of having these conversations just between the two of us. And anytime anybody has like walked into our conversations or just been around, they've always been like, yeah, that was a pretty good take. That's really weird. And then we just love to bring those people into those conversations. So I feel like this is probably the quickest way, most technologically advanced way to bring people that we know and people that we don't know into our conversations that we're going to be having anyway.
Yeah. And you know, there's a lot of things, and I'll say most things Chris and I do agree on, but there's also things that we probably don't agree on, or at least kind of maybe not perfectly align on. And there's
for
some
example, I'm a Coke guy, Tim is a Pepsi guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've actually fought over that. Physically fought.
That one time
Yeah.
at the Watchtower. Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. And so we're really just hoping that this podcast we're going to have guest speakers. That's the right word. We're going to have guest speakers on this show. We're going to have people with different backgrounds, different experiences come in, and we're going to have different topics. You know, I had a lot of people ask me once we launched the trailer for the podcast, like, what is this really going to be about? And I just kind of
don't know.
Anything and everything, to be honest. And that's kind of the point of the name too. It's like it's just more. Like we didn't want to narrow it down to just one topic. Obviously, we're Christian guys and we love Jesus and we love what the church can be. But or at least I do. But I think, you know, we don't want to narrow it down to just, hey, let's talk about faith every week. Obviously, that's a part of who we are, and we kind of have a lot of that as a filter through how we think because it's been a part of our lives growing up. Mm-hmm. But not every week is going to be a in-depth conversation into a theological, you know, discussion. Rather, some episodes just might be stupid and we talk about Star Wars. Not that Star Wars is stupid, but
no, for sure. I mean, sometimes we'll take you to church. Sometimes we'll crap on church. Sometimes we'll just kind of point out what can be good, what isn't good. Sometimes we'll just literally talk about Star Wars, music, football clubs.
Yes.
Sports ball. That's what we do.
Sports ball.
We love sports ball, I guess. Video games. Really, anything and everything is up for debate, and we'll talk about it. We'll kind of go into details on what we think about it. Yeah. If we don't have an opinion on something, we will make one up on the spot.
For sure. And something that Chris and I think definitely do agree on is that we like the philosophy of knowing that we don't know everything. Like,
no, I hate that. I hate that I don't know everything.
Well, I mean, like, it's okay with us that we don't know everything. That's the point of life, is that you're supposed to grow, you're supposed to learn. Yeah. There is always more to learn. There's always more
we can do. Yeah.
Yes, there's always more room to grow and to experience new things, to experience new people. You know, I was listening to a podcast literally this morning from Jeremy. Is it Jeremy? No, not Jeremy Camp. Whew, 2000s Christian music just hit me. The guy from Love Anyways.
You know I don't know that.
Oh, man, I feel so dumb for not knowing this. But anyways, I was listening to his podcast earlier, and he does a lot of, not missionary work, but work overseas to, like, humanitarian help, and just does things like he was over there when the Iraq War started and all that stuff. And so, anyways, he talks about how one of the best ways that we can just come together is just to reach out to each other in relationship. It sounds simple and it sounds silly, but if we get to know each other, it's a lot harder to be angry at one another. It's a lot harder to assume the worst out of one another if we know.
Yeah, for sure.
And so,
my wife Janelle says that all the time. People are hard to hate up close.
Yes. Oh, that's good.
So,
so we are going to hold on. I'm going to find it. Here we go. Jeremy Courtney. That's his name. I was close.
He's got 2 first names.
Yes, he does. All right. Well, hey, enough about that. I mean, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much why we're doing this, what we're doing. We love to talk. We love to have conversations. We can become, I'm very opinionated. I think Chris is too.
Subtly. I'm subtly opinionated.
Yes. You get me talking, I start talking.
My skill is making you think that your opinion is your opinion, when really it was my opinion all along.
Oh, you hear that, Mom and Dad? This is all Chris. So don't blame me. This is all Chris and everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Well, hey, this next segment, I want to introduce us and really about who we are. Obviously, you're going to get to know a lot more about us as time goes on and as the show continues on. You're going to get to know us really well. But I wanted to kind of talk about what we like to do, passions, family, etc. So, Chris, you go first, my best friend. Who are you? Why should people care about you? I'm kidding. Why? Just tell them why I love you so much.
Well, I'm an Aquarius. I like long walks on the beach.
No, we said we weren't going to do that.
No, truly, I am just I'm a ghost piloting a meat shell
Wow.
on a rock hurtling through space at thousands of miles an hour, and I have no idea what's going on with life. I live my life for the experience. So anytime I have the opportunity to do something brand new, something crazy, something out there, that's what I go for.
Yeah.
I literally ran away to join the circus when I was in college. I've been to 4 different colleges. I have enough credits for 2.5 degrees. I have 1 degree myself in theology that I don't even use. So I don't know. I'm a father, a husband, a brother, cousin. I don't think I'm a grandfather. Yet.
I really hope not.
I mean, if time travel's a thing, I might be. Who knows?
Oh, well, okay.
Who knows?
Sure.
I'm a son, a nephew, friend, colleague, coworker. I work for a security company. I really enjoy the rainbow unicorn flavor of Bang energy drink. I don't know what flavor that's supposed to be, but I know it's delicious.
You know, it's like something really dark too. It's like,
Yeah,
the reason why it's so bright and colorful.
No,
like,
for sure. They're like, oh yeah, this is made with the tears of orphans. Like, oh. I mean, I'll still drink it, but oh.
Yeah.
I love to write. I do not like to
Yes.
read.
Yes.
I love driving and working on cars, but I could not tell you what I'm doing when I'm doing those things. I just instinctively know what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I love music. I do not play string instruments. I've tried to learn. It's not going to happen. I can play pretty much any brass or woodwind, though. That's an insane thing.
That's kind of impressive.
And, that's all you get for now. I feel like that was a lot.
That's a good
Yeah.
pitch.
You'll learn more as time goes on.
Right. All right.
What about you, man?
What about
Tell us
me?
about Tim, the man, the myth, the legend.
Oh, Lord. All right. So I'm Tim. Like Chris, I'm a father. I am a husband. I am a pastor's kid. I'm a PK.
And a pastor.
And a pastor. That's right. I guess that's kind of important. I'm a youth pastor.
Second generation.
Yeah, second generation. Oh, actually third if you kind of count my grandparents on my mom's side. But
Well, that's how generations work. So yeah, third.
yeah, I guess. Oh, that sounds really misogynistic. That's not how I meant that to sound.
We'll get to that. Don't worry.
Oh, we will. Oh God, it's bleeding out already. All right. So yeah, I'm that. I've been in love with my wife since 7th grade. So that's been 15 years, 20 years, almost 20 years.
Jeez.
Yeah. I came here in 2004.
Yeah, so it's
Almost.
coming up.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
That's a story that I'll tell another day about my friend zone and all that fun jazz. I love soccer. I think over the past few years, really started to enjoy it more and really kind of get into it. Obviously, I love podcasts. This is kind of the thing that I do. I'm pretty sure I annoy Chris with all the podcasts I send him, and I'm 90% sure he hasn't listened to any of them.
That is not true. I have listened to exactly 2 out of. I guarantee you've sent me at least 20. So I'm at like 10%. I'm batting 100 here.
But I think the reason why I love podcasts so much is because I just love learning. Even as a kid, I always had like those Guinness World Records books and like those stupid pointless science books that just random science information about random things.
Scientific facts you don't need to know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just love learning that stuff, and so I like to do trivia, and so anyways, podcast has always been a thing that I've really enjoyed to get into, and so, let's see what else about me.
Tim loves to play guitar. He loves
yeah.
board games. He loves Star Wars.
Star Wars. How did I forget Star Wars?
I truly don't know,
Man,
because
what is
we're
wrong
literally
with
sitting in
me?
your office and there's like Star Wars stuff like subtly all over the place.
Yes, I got Rey, Finn, and Poe up there.
I'm looking at your closet right now and there's literally a lightsaber box, which, real Jedis would go to a different planet to find their own kyber crystal and then build lightsaber for themselves. But I guess if you can't afford to go to a different planet, store-bought is fine.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I love Star Wars. Chris and I, that's something that we definitely share a love of, is just Star Wars and all that entails, all the shows, all the movies, and all that. All right, well, hey, let's do this. I have some questions, okay? Let's talk about our just random fun things, okay? So what is your favorite way to spend a day off? Like, other than like the stereotypical, like, oh, I'm going to spend it with my family. Like, if you were just you and you were Janelle and Bean were off on vacation, or I don't know, somewhere else, what would you be doing at home? A day off.
And if I could just spend the day without family, by myself, off, not having to work or anything.
Yeah.
I would probably just sit around my house not knowing what to do with myself.
Oh my gosh.
It sounds more sad than it is. Like, most of my time is devoted to work, and then when I'm not at work, I'm with my family.
Yeah.
So I would maybe play video games, but that would bore me after a while. I would probably try to learn guitar again, and then that would upset me after a while.
Didn't you have a ukulele for a while?
For like 3 weeks. I don't even know what happened to it. Like, some of the things I get, I intensely love for such a small amount of time. And then they just disappear, and I truly don't know. I had a ukulele, that skateboard I had, I don't know what happened to that.
Right.
I had a PlayStation 3 at one point that just disappeared. And then I bought a new one like 4 months later, and then that one also disappeared. I don't know where my stuff goes.
Well, you have a PlayStation. That's the first problem. That's probably why.
Ooh. See, this is one of those things we're going to get into it about, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd probably just kind of kick around my house doing a whole bunch of nothing.
Whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so for me, my brain is, I want to occupy all the time I have.
Oh, I'm well aware.
Shut up. That is just how I like to function. So I do not like to waste time. Now, I don't consider wasting time doing fun things. I consider wasting time doing things that are unnecessary, or like, guys, I hate going to the bathroom. I really do. I think it's...
I love it. It's my favorite.
I can't stand, because it's like, of all the things that interrupt me and get in my way, it's just the worst. I just don't like it. Anyways, so video games, I think, is something I really like to do. I like to play on the Xbox. Assassin's Creed, that's the game that I know that you sort of like.
I did until 3.
Yeah, 3.
As a Native American, 3 really upset me.
Yeah.
So we'll move on from there.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another podcast, another episode.
We should just write these down as we're going.
We really should. I need to
topics.
keep track. So yeah, I like games. I like playing guitar. I like being creative, and so like creating songs, creating music, creating whatever, but also just learning. So even if I'm just reading a book or listening to a podcast, that is totally awesome, and I love doing that. So, Chris, what kind of music are you into?
So lately I've been getting into hip hop and R&B.
Like modern?
Well, any kind from like the 80s up.
Okay.
I'm half black, and as a kid I wasn't really allowed to explore that part of my culture. So now as an adult, I'm finally like trying to connect with my roots and kind of understanding that side of me, I guess.
Yeah.
So lately I've been getting into hip hop and R&B a lot. Up until recently though, it's all been like emo rock.
Come on.
I'm an emo kid at heart. You met me during my
you
emo
and my
phase.
wife.
So My Chemical Romance, Panic at the Disco, all of that stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. What about you?
As of late, I've been really into lo-fi. Like
Oh yes,
dude, I love if you know me, you know that I love Switchfoot and John Foreman and certain well, those two guys or groups. But lo-fi these days have just really been my thing. Like as much as I love exploring new music, sometimes I don't know if it's just the mood I'm in or just this year or whatever, but lo-fi has been my thing. So
I got to tell you, man, today I was actually cleaning my house before I got here, and I was listening to your lo-fi playlist on Spotify.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you you remember how I told you how much I love. So have you seen all my list on Spotify? That's what you're talking about. Yeah, I got many lists on Spotify. I'm both proud of and also a little embarrassed. I have public ones, and then I have private ones, and that's the one I'm probably a little more ashamed of.
I would assume so, since it's private. But
I'm talking about like the quantity of hidden playlists I have.
Oh, good Lord.
I'll show you later.
I think I have like 8 playlists total.
Oh.
I'm sure you have like 80.
So you know how like I don't know if you know this, but you can create folders now in Spotify. So like for me, I have like cinematic folder, but then in that I have different like Christopher Nolan stuff or like Hans Zimmer or John Williams
folders
huh?
in your Spotify.
Yeah.
All right, man. Whatever. Let's get to the next one.
Yes.
What was your favorite age growing up? Like if you could go back to live a year of your life, what age would that be?
From what I can really remember, because memories we really just that's a whole nother episode.
Oh yeah,
too.
no, there are blocks of my memory that I don't have.
Yeah.
So I get it.
I remember really a lot of positive vibes my 8th grade year. Like I remember just having good friends. You were a friend my 8th grade year. Jesus crew, youth
8th grade
group.
was a good year for you.
A freshman year wasn't that bad either. Like it was a pretty close second, but I think 8th grade year around that time. So however old I was then, so it's like 13, 14.
Yeah, you really peaked in 8th grade. That was good for you.
I peaked?
Yeah, you peaked. I'm just kidding.
I don't want to know the implications of that.
No, that's hurtful. I'm sorry. No, 8th grade was a good year for you. I would, yeah.
Thanks.
I remember that. I was there for it. 8th grade was a good year. I wouldn't say 8th grade myself, although that, like I said, was a good year. I would definitely say I would go back to be 19 when I was living in Florida, working at Disney. That was a really fun experience.
I'm glad that was really fun for you.
Yeah, it wasn't for a lot of my coworkers and colleagues at that time.
Yeah.
Like I go back on the boards on Facebook and stuff and just kind of check in with people. And a lot of them were like, oh, that was the worst experience of my life. And I'm just over here like, oh, can't relate.
Oh,
I had a blast.
I think I really enjoyed that.
No, I loved it. It was like one of the coolest experiences of my life.
All right, let's do one more because as I predicted, we just talk a lot.
We're running out of time.
We are not running out of time because I can always edit and it'll be a little bit shorter, but
running the time up then.
Yeah. Okay. So, what was the last TV show you binge watched? Let's let that be the last one.
Yeah, that was a good choice. Last TV show I binge watched. Ooh. Come back to me. I'm trying to remember.
Okay. The last one that I just finished. Oh, what was it? Justified. With Timothy. Is it Oliphant and is that how you say his name? It's a weird last name.
I don't know truly.
But
I know what the show is. I just don't know who the actors are.
Yeah. It was really good. It's about this guy. He's a U.S. Marshal and it's in Kentucky. And it's got like this really, Southern, like horrible, like it exploits like just how dirty and crap some parts of the South can be, and so it gave me like a lot of Fallout 5 vibes, and yeah, but it was really good. It's a really good show.
Okay, so last show that I binge watched was actually an anime, Black Clover.
Nice,
pretty cool. It's about this kid that was born without magic in a world where magic is everything, and through his sheer amount of willpower has decided he's going to be the Wizard King. But he has no magic. So people are always giving him crap for it, and then he shows them what's what, and he's on his way. It's a pretty cool show.
All right, well, that's cool. All right, well, let's move this show along, and let's talk about us. Let's talk about
us, baby. Let's talk about you and me. I don't think we can be sued for copyright if I'm just saying these things, right?
No, you can't.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've been contemplating about a lot of that.
Cool.
I'm really excited to hear you're singing on this podcast, Chris, because I for sure can't.
It's gonna happen sporadically, and it may be good, it may not.
And that's the thing
I
with
don't
you
know
is
when
that
it's
you
gonna
can
happen.
sing good. So if it comes out bad, you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, usually.
All right, so we're going to tell the story about how we became friends, and I'm going to try to remember it the best I can. Here's how I remember it. Okay. 7th grade year.
Right.
This is where it began. We weren't friends in 7th grade.
No.
But this is where it began.
Yes.
Chris, and I say this with all the goodness, because again, this is my best friend at each other's weddings. This is my bro. He was a cool kid. He was adored by people.
I was.
And especially ladies and girls, and that's just one of those things.
I was adorable, man.
You still are.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to church one night, and I remember seeing Chris there. And so I mean, he was surrounded by people. I don't know if I was just busy. I was probably distracted by Star Wars Battlefront 2 in the game room.
Man, that was a good game.
So good. Anyways, so I remember seeing Chris at school. It was at Liberty Hill Middle School, and I remember it's you and a group of friends around you. And I go up there. I'm this is like this little peach fuzz mustache Tim going up to you and go like, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" And like, "Hey, do you remember me from GC Crew?" And I remember you just completely like, I don't remember what you said, but you definitely shut me down.
I was pretty good at shutting people down. Whatever I said, I'm sure it was hurtful.
And so, but I don't know if I was just like super thick-skinned at the moment or what, but I remember it like not affecting me that much. Maybe it was a God thing. Like maybe it was like, just wait, just
Maybe.
I remember just like kind of walking. I'm like, okay, bye,
Yeah.
But time went on, and I think you kind of, I don't know, just likened to me, or I don't know if it's just because of time or what, but I would invite you to the house, you and Dre, and we would watch movies and other things there's a lot of things I'm probably glossing over, but it was a gradual, over like a year and a half, we became good close friends, I think.
Yeah. Like it happened slowly, but then suddenly all at once.
Right. That's the best way that I can remember it.
It's like one of those love songs, but bromance, not weird love. Anyway, yeah, so that was pretty much it. So from my perspective, what happened was some little nerd decided he was going to try to talk to me in front of my friends, and I shut him down. I do remember that. I just don't remember what I said. And then Roscoe, he's a guy from our church, came up to me and was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but there's this new kid here who looks like he could use a friend, and you're so friendly. So I think it would be a good idea for you guys to hang out." And I was just like, "Nah, I don't think so, Roscoe. Sorry." But then they ended up putting us in the same little youth group, building team or whatever it was, and we had to hang out for that.
Yeah.
And then we got put into the same groups for games and stuff we were doing. And just like you said, over time we started being forced into being friends.
We were forced to be friends.
And then suddenly we were just friends. That's how it was. So,
well, if you know me, and Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, but I've always kind of, I've especially at that time in my life, I was very friendly, and like I welcomed people into my life to be friends, even if they weren't very friendly themselves. Now, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about like when we were really close friends, and then I would bring other people into our friendships, and just
right.
And sometimes that was good, sometimes it wasn't so good, and so I think that's kind of just naturally what happened. Is just you kind of saw that I was somewhat normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
like we had some common interests.
Right.
You weren't weird. You just weren't what I was used to, I guess.
Yeah.
And like I said, I live for the experience. So getting to know somebody that I wasn't used to is my MO. That's what I did.
Right. And to maybe like clarify a little bit too, to everyone that's listening, we are not the same kind of person. Like we have a lot of the same interests and a lot of the same loves, but as far as like personality and how we do things,
vastly different.
Yeah. What we joke about a lot is that we married each other, like our wives, we married each other in female form. So like Jessica is a lot like Chris and Janelle is a lot like me. Like obviously we have our differences, but like we have a lot of similar, I don't know what's what I'm looking for, just characteristics and, ways that we do things and the ways we think. And so,
Right.
but Chris and I are very different. And so I really do appreciate that, because as we became friends, it's refreshing, because we almost have like this really strong, we do have this really strong friendship that's not founded in some kind of weak, like just common interest or just some kind of, and not that that's a bad thing, but just it's not one thing that holds us as friends.
Yeah.
And it's really, we've challenged each other, we've grown each other, we've fought, we've had differences, but we ultimately, and it's not like we had to, but we kept our friendship because we've known each other and we liked each other, and we knew that our friendship was worth something.
Yeah, definitely. It was worth the investment, worth the time and the effort to put into it.
Yeah.
Even when we were having our little marriage spats or whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah, that's another episode.
Whatever you want to call it. Even when we were having our fights and stuff, it was always like, this is the guy that I want to be the best man in my wedding. This is the guy I want to have around. This is the guy I want to call if something happens.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's pretty much it.
If you would like really quickly, I'll wrap this up. But if you were to characterize us into TV character shows, like people characters, Ted Mosby and Marshall Erickson. So that's from How I Met Your Mother. So here's the way I explained it the other day, though, to you is you are the good mixture of Marshall and Barney. You are the good Barney that's really funny and energetic and just super outgoing and fun. You're not the horrible, like sleeping around, horrible human being Barney. You're the good side of Barney.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
I'm the reason that they hung out with Barney.
Right. Yeah.
Not the actual Barney himself.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
And I'm the Ted. If you've seen Scrubs, that's another one of my favorite shows.
Oh yeah, man. Scrubs. Scrubs is where it's at.
Yes.
I think when I first married Janelle, I made her watch that show the week we got married.
I'm still working on that with Jess. What was the thing for me to get Jess to watch was Star Wars. Up to our point, she had,
yeah. I still can't. I can't believe you married her before that.
It was God. I'm kidding.
Whatever,
okay, I know she's gonna listen to this later. But anyways, JD and Turk, that's probably the closest example. I think like we're obviously not the same people as them, but like their bondness towards one another and like their affection towards one another. I think that's as close as we are to one another.
Honestly, JD and Turk is pretty good. I think the best depiction though would be Corey and Sean from Boy Meets World.
I'm sure you're right, but I didn't watch a show enough to really know.
Okay, well, first off, you need to, because that show was instrumental in shaping who I am as a human being.
Okay.
Secondly, you are definitely the Corey out of the two of us, and I am definitely the Sean.
I've heard that. I've heard that from Jess.
Yeah.
And then Parks and Rec, if you've seen that show, Chris and Ben, we're not really that much like either character. I think you're just good friends. I don't know why I put that in there.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, guys, we have a lot to talk about. And before we get to this next subject, one of the reasons why we're talking about toxic masculinity is because our friendship, obviously, Chris and I love each other, and we really respect one another. And we're going to lead into this in a second, but there's a lot of things that, at least for me, prevented or at least hindered how close I think I could have gotten to Chris. I think, obviously, I still think we were pretty close and we were good, but there was some things that I think might have helped get in the way of that, or at least made me think in the back of my head, is this okay?
Yeah.
Does that sound weird? But,
it's no weirder than this. Let me start by saying, I think the weird thing about it is that if we came out as gay for each other, nobody would question it.
No one would be surprised.
They would just be like, yeah, that makes sense. But neither of us are gay.
Right.
So just stating that as a fact, neither of us are gay, but if we were, no one would be surprised. That being said, I just think our relationship is a lot closer than most people would expect two heterosexual men to be.
Yeah.
It's just something that it is what it is. It's one of those things.
It is. Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about toxic masculinity, what we think about it, and how it's shaped both our friendship and also just a whole bunch of other things. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Chris, man, we got an interesting topic for first episode.
Yeah, I really felt like we should have just stuck with the intros, but you wanted to do a topic, so let's freaking do a topic, man.
I
Come
did.
On. All right, so toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Wait. Before we start, before you dive into this, we are not experts. We are not psychologists. We are not, I like history, but we are not experts in this.
No, for sure not. But, as straight men, I feel like we can talk on this subject.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we have a little opinion about it. I think we have some validity to talking about it. And to be fair, I did research a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. You read a book, so that means we know everything we need to know.
Right. I know
we'll
everything.
Give our opinions, whether you like them or not. They're right.
Okay, so how are we diving into this?
Head first, man. So toxic masculinity, what is it?
What is it? Okay, so
you read a book. Tell me.
If you really just get to the simplicity of it, it's kind of like this idea that masculinity has to be a certain way of doing things. It's a certain way you dress. It's a certain lifestyle. It's a certain macho, aggressive warrior type, usually, especially in America. It's this, I have to be dominant.
Right.
I have to have the last word. It's my authority, and it's often rooted both in, unfortunately, in biblical, taken out of context verses, and also just honestly how this country was founded, and that's a whole nother discussion. But it's
the patriarchy.
Absolutely, and it's really a lot about how it's a lot of things that can be taken for good, which is the term toxic comes part into this. Masculinity is not a bad thing; it's the toxic masculinity that's a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so. Now, there's some things that I was reading and researching, and I was trying to figure out where it came from. So I found this article from The Atlantic by this guy named Michael Salter. Salter? Yeah, that sounds about right.
Article, man. Don't ask me.
They don't pronounce it in the they don't pronounce it in the article, but he says it's a term that actually came from the mythopoetic men's movement in the 80s and 90s. And I'm going to paraphrase this from this article, which I'll put in the show notes later. But it's basically this movement where they thought that men were being taught feminine things. They thought that, yeah, God forbid, that there's this generation coming up underneath them that were being told that their jeans are too tight, or that they're listening to feminine music, or that whatever they're doing is not masculine, whatever that was at the time.
It's the long hair for me.
The hair, yeah. It's so funny because it's like you look back, it's like you can see the waves of it. Like it was like the long hair, it was the type of jeans, it was whatever it was, and you could see like through history like where that kind of came up. And he says this: men's aggression and frustration was, according to the movement, the result of a society that feminized boys by denying them the necessary rights and rituals to realize their true selves as men. But what's so crazy about this is that as I was doing some research, and as I was listening to a podcast that actually your wife Janelle introduced me to called Dig, and it's really this huge history podcast that I really love.
Right.
There's an episode where they're talking about men in the Civil War, and while they didn't have this name for it, toxic masculinity, there's some letters and there was things written by men, and they basically were questioning what was masculine, what was appropriate, why some men were fearful in war, and why some of them weren't, and some of them wanted just to go home because they were scared, but they were afraid of being looked at a certain way. And so this is not a new subject. It's not something that's brand new. It's not something that came up just in this mythopoetic movement in the 80s and 90s, but something that really I think has, and I'll talk about later, it's really kind of just it's poisoned a lot of what manhood and masculinity is supposed to be about.
Yeah, hence the word toxic.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge issue culturally, just toxic masculinity being such a negative thing. Because like you said, inherently masculinity isn't bad, and inherently femininity isn't bad.
Yeah.
And as human beings, we all have that duality. I've got some feminine traits and some masculine traits. You've got some masculine traits and some feminine traits.
Right.
So one over the other really shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be, well, since you're a man, you have to have these masculine traits and you have to do it this way or that way. But that's the way our society's been built.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's where the problem comes in, because there's a whole section of humanity, 50% of us statistically, that are just being oppressed by another 50% of us just because of the gender that they present as or that they were born as.
Yeah.
In some countries, women aren't allowed to learn. They're not allowed to go to school. They're not allowed to drive. In America, obviously, they have those rights. They can go to school. They can drive. They can do whatever. But they're still looked down on because they're women.
Yeah.
As though their impact in the world isn't as strong as a man's. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's what we keep running into. Like there are so many inventions that women made that men have taken credit for.
Heck yes.
Or so many different plans and ideas and theories that women came up with that men have been credited for, that men have completely ignored until another man said, well, maybe we should do this.
Right.
And obviously a woman said it first. Everybody knows that. But the man is the one that said it louder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he gets the credit.
Man. Well, it's not that he said it louder. It's that his voice was leveled up higher than anyone else, other than women. And so it's so ironic in all this is that there are men inventions that have now turned quote unquote feminine that men stay away from. High heels. That was a thing that men created. Wigs, makeup.
Yeah.
All these dresses, kilts, all these different things started from men inventing these things, or at least being predominantly worn or presented by men.
Right.
And now through time, and that's just a whole nother issue with history, is that time changes things. And so to characterize one certain thing as masculine or feminine is so short-sighted and so damaging, because time itself will prove that there is nothing or very little things that are that concrete.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we've kind of come to realize as millennials, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're on TikTok. You follow all kinds of different people.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the people that I follow are not what you would call conservative.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that have been pointed out to me are that, you know, conservatives have this way of thinking that, and obviously this isn't all conservatives, so don't at me in the comments. But conservatives have this way of thinking that you can't do this way. You have to do it this way. Otherwise, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting those around you. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
Like, I have a friend that does drag. He loves it. He has a blast. He's a straight man, but he has a blast doing drag. When he's doing drag, he goes all out. Makeup, high heels, the whole 9 yards, dress, all that. And I've had some conservative friends attack him for that. But you don't see him attacking my conservative friends for their beliefs. And that's a problem to me. That is a massive problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the reason that conservatives do that is they think that that's an attack on masculinity in and of itself.
Yeah.
And they get scared that him doing that is going to, like I said earlier, hurt them somehow.
Right.
They don't understand that it's his life, and what he does isn't forcing anything down their throats just because they have to see it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is the reason why I wanted to talk about this, because there's so many times I think as us as friends, there were things that we could have, and not granted, I'll just say it, like there are so many things that have been ingrained in us that we could have been doing. Like I remember there's one picture that we had where we were sitting in a chair together. It was just us goofing off. But I remember, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, I think we were at your friend's house. I can't remember who it was. Was it Bobby's?
Probably Bobby, yeah.
And we were just goofing off. But I remember, like, looking at that picture, I'm like, dude, I wonder what people thought about that and what they thought about us. And I know it's so stupid and silly, but I'm like, man, there were so many things that were in the back of at least my head of going, I wonder how this looks. And, you know, there's a and I'll share this story without giving out any names, but when I was a kid, I as I kind of mentioned earlier in the podcast, I love organization. I love list. I love Sims. I love that game. And so that's just who I am. And I remember this one year, my sister, it was her birthday, and she got this Barbie airplane. It was a massive thing. It was really cool, and she opened it up, but then she started playing with some other toys. And so I was looking at the airplane, and I was just impressed, like how many details there were in this thing, and like all the compartments and everything. And so I thought that was kind of cool. Someone walked in the room, and they kind of caught me off guard, and they go, "Tim, what are you doing?" I'm just looking at this, and I can't remember what that they said, but essentially they kind of mocked and kind of go, that's a girl's thing. You don't touch that. You don't play with that. And it's such a, dude, that happened to me when I was like 9 years old, and that thing is still ingrained. And unfortunately, and this is where I think it's become a part of us, and unfortunately that's why it's so toxic, is because it gets ingrained into us, and it prevents us from doing things that aren't bad, might be feminine, but they're not bad within themselves. They're a different part of our identity. And even if you were to get theological with this, He made man and woman in His own image. Therefore, God has a masculine side and a feminine side.
Yeah. Yeah, we could go into the biblical history of that. Jesus coming first as Sophia and then as Jesus, but that's probably for another podcast as well.
Right.
Yeah, like those types of things happen to us when we're so young, because it happened to the people before us when they were so young.
Yeah.
And it happened to the people before them when they were so young. And it's just a vicious cycle of shame, and it's abuse, really, is what it is. Abuse and trauma.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to tell a little boy he can't play with a Barbie airplane.
Yeah.
There's no reason to tell a little girl she can't play with a Tonka dump truck.
Yeah.
Like, do what you want to do, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. That's my thing.
Yeah.
If your kid grows up playing with dolls, let's say Jim grows up playing with dolls, how is that going to be bad for him? Yeah. At most, he's going to learn parenting skills. He's going to learn to love. He's going to learn to be open.
Thank you.
And at worst, he just likes dolls.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with liking dolls. They're toys.
And dude, you just hit, dude, that's so great, because that's a whole nother thing. It's like, and that's so funny about boys' toys. I mean, you can take away, everything has to be this super macho thing. That's toxic masculinity. It has to be this super aggressive
dump trucks and
guns, and a lot of it does revolve around violence.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me to see, I've seen people, both good-minded people, and they've just adopted this train of thought that, well, boys can't have dolls, and you just brought up a great point. It's like that will teach them how to be better parents. It's the same reason why you get girls dolls.
One of my favorite things in the world is when people tell me that, and I just say, why? And then watch them spiral as they try to explain it out loud to themselves.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense, but they feel like an innate desire to defend it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like breaks something inside of them. I love watching that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and you reference this too, but in the article in Salter, he says many conservatives allege that charges of toxic masculinity are an attack on manhood itself, and at the time when men already face challenges such as higher rates of drugs, overdose, and suicide. No one, or not no one, but most people, when they're challenging toxic masculinity, they're not going against masculinity itself. Now, granted, you can see in news, wherever left or right, that it does get twisted that way, but most of the time, if good-minded people, when they're talking about toxic masculinity, they are talking about the negativity that you have to align yourself with certain views. I mean, like, even with soccer, dude, I love soccer, but I think one of the reasons why I just now started getting into it really past 5 years is because for the longest time, people kind of made fun of me for liking it. Just because it was not American, and it was, all those Europeans play, how they are, and it's like, man, it just sucks because, I'm a straight guy, but even then, it's just, I don't know.
It's an unnecessary thing, is what it is. Yeah. Like, when people come against toxic masculinity, a lot of people that subscribe to those views feel like they're coming against them personally.
Yeah.
And it's not against you personally. What they're saying is, hey, if you're a man and you want to wear makeup or high heels, wear it. Mm-hmm. They're not saying you have to.
Right.
They're not saying anything like that. But if you're a man and you don't want to wear high heels, you want to wear work boots, you don't want to wear makeup, you just want to throw some sunglasses on and call it a day, do that too.
Right.
Like, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so as we kind of get close to the end of this part, I wanted to, this is just me personally, and Chris, please, you know a lot about the Bible and just Christianity itself too, but I can't remember where I heard this from, so if I'm quoting someone or if I'm paraphrasing someone else, and I apologize, I just don't remember. But I like to look at Jesus here, and when he came into Jerusalem during the week of, I think it was Passover, the week that he was going to be crucified, he was welcomed and praised coming into Jerusalem. I mean, if you know the story, he gets on a colt, he gets in, and the people are celebrating him. They're throwing palm leaves at him. They're worshiping him because they know that he has come to save the day. And then about a week later, things happen. He does ministry. He says a lot of things. He does a lot of things that the Pharisees don't like, and obviously that leads to him getting captured, arrested, willfully captured and arrested, and then murdered. Or I guess depends on your view of it, but he sacrifices himself. But the funny thing is that as he is marching up, carrying that cross on his back, the same people who welcomed him in are now cheering for his death.
Right.
What happened in that week? And I think, I mean, I might be looking too far into this. If you're a theologian, if you don't like what I'm saying, then whatever. But I do not think it's a far stretch to say that people were expecting this warrior God king who was going to rescue them from the Roman Empire and to free them. And now that he wasn't doing that, he was talking about peace. He was talking about doing things out of love and not overthrowing the empire that's been harassing them and keeping them oppressed.
Yeah, for sure.
No, okay, go ahead and take him out. He must not be the real Messiah.
That's exactly what it is, because they did the same thing for Judas Maccabee. That's why the Maccabees were such a big deal, because he was actually a conquering warrior type.
Yeah.
And he tried to overthrow the empire that had taken them at that time. They were expecting that from Jesus, because, he's the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Yeah. He's the Messiah. He's going to save us. But what they weren't expecting was that the sent Messiah was going to save them in a peaceful manner.
Right.
They thought he was just going to show up and wreck shop on the Romans,
Yeah, yeah.
That's what they were expecting.
And so when we're talking about toxic masculinity, and we'll kind of conclude it here, this is not coming out of like any left or right agenda. This is not. It's so funny, dude. There's so many times to where I've heard like, oh, that sounds like something the left would say. I'm like, I think this is something that Jesus would say. Like, you don't have to do these certain things to be masculine. You don't have to like American football. You don't have to like tools. You don't have to like do all these different things that just other men do. You can, like I personally, I like shooting guns. I do, but I also don't like American football.
Yeah. We're on the same page on that
one. And that doesn't diminish my masculinity or yours or anyone else's for that matter. And so what I would hope to encourage, if there's any guys listening to this and if there's anyone out there who has felt this kind of stuff before, number one, know that you're not alone. Both Chris and I have felt and seen and experienced things in our own lives, but also in the lives of people around us. And let me say this, there is more than this. There is more than toxic masculinity. You can be masculine without having to fit into a certain character or a stereotype or whatever it is. You don't have to like the same things that everyone else does or fit in. And one last thing. Sorry, I like to talk, but one last thing. It's so funny how a lot of Christian churches, Christian people will talk about how you're not supposed to fit in. You're not supposed to be of the world. You're not supposed to, I'm talking about like, was that Romans where it's like you're supposed to be transformed.
Yeah.
And yet we have this thing when it comes to masculinity.
But not like that.
But right.
Yeah.
So are we not, wait, so do look like them or don't be like them? And so it's so funny because people then will say, well, they're talking about spiritual things. I'm like, okay, but this is obviously affecting us in a spiritual way.
My favorite insult that I've gotten was bleeding heart liberal. Like, bro, I'm literally quoting Jesus. Jesus was a bleeding heart liberal. Like, I don't think you understand that. This isn't a left or a right issue. This is a heart issue, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
This is just something that Jesus would say. This is something that Jesus would do.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, how about you open your Bible and read it? Find those red words.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, whether you agree with us or not, let me encourage you to just read, to just dive in, to just try to find more information, to investigate yourself. I will say this, a lot of my growth has been happening gradually over the past 10 years or so, and it's come slowly, and it's come through, though, relationships like with you and me, Chris, and through other friends, but also just listening and reading and trying to understand perspectives and ideas. And and granted, not all of them are great, but some of them, like this, I think, are good to point out, and that masculinity has nothing to do with your favorite sport, has nothing to do with your favorite activity or your favorite shoes or whatever. It has everything to do with your identity with Christ and just you as a human being. So
There you go.
there you go. Guys, that was fun.
That's deep.
That was deep. All right. Well, hey, in a quick second, we'll take one more quick break, and we're going to talk about Ask Chris and Tim. Let's do it.
All right, guys, we're back with hashtag AskChrisAndTim.
Yes. So we had a few people that asked us, and so we want to encourage you guys, if you want to ask us questions, we're not that popular yet, and I'm not on Twitter. You are, I think.
I'm on Twitter, but I don't tweet.
So
maybe I should just tweet more.
So if you want to ask us questions, we really want to hear from you. We in the future, like I said before, we're going to have guest speakers and we're going to have other people that we want to make this interactive. This is not going to be just the Chris and Tim show. We do want to invite you into our conversations and ask us questions. And so if you have questions for us, go to our Instagram, go to our stories, like our highlights, and we keep those questions in there so you can always ask us questions. But even in the comments or whatever, ask us your questions. It can be about what we just talked about. It can be about just us, Chris and myself. It can be about anything. And so
anything you want to know, any of our viewpoints that you're curious about.
Yeah.
If you just want to know what color socks I'm wearing today, they're usually white. But feel free to ask away.
All right. I'll ask the first question. Tiara, my friend Tiara, she asked, what's a societal issue that you are passionate about, but you've never gone through yourself? My Lord.
Okay. So, well, I think we kind of touched on it. Toxic masculinity.
But we've gone through that.
Specifically, though, the way it affects women.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've become a huge proponent for, I guess, women's rights, reproductive or otherwise. I won't go into a whole lot of detail just because this is supposed to be a short section. But if I catch anyone disrespecting women, especially a man, I am so quick to correct that behavior. My nephew Tyler lives with us, and anytime growing up that he would say something that was even a little bit sexist, we'd have a come to Jesus meeting.
Ooh, yeah.
Obviously, I am not a woman, and I usually will defer to my wife in those situations just because she knows the best way.
Yeah.
But if she has told me something, or if another woman has told me something, and I hear somebody else coming against that, you better believe I will be on their heels.
Yeah.
I'll be on them like white on rice and a glass of milk on a paper plate in a snowstorm, bro.
That's good, man. For me, this one really just, it's something that, because I am a white male, and that would be racial issues. Just straight up, that's one of the things that I have not experienced because I am a white male. I have privilege. And so that's one of the things that I've been more passionate about over the past few months is most importantly is listening. That's the role that I've been really trying to do is to just listen and to seek understanding and to I don't have to agree with everything, and that's a whole nother episode again, but that's first and foremost is just listen.
And I think that's the most important thing in any societal issue, especially if you're not dealing with that yourself.
Yeah.
You don't get to police the way other people feel or react to an issue, especially if you're not experiencing it.
Yeah.
You as a white man cannot tell me how to feel as a black man when a white person is oppressing me.
Yeah.
And I as a man can't tell a woman how to feel when a man is oppressing her.
Yeah.
The most powerful thing you can do for someone else is just listen.
Yeah. So that's me. I'm trying to keep it short, but that's race. It's a big thing that I've been really passionate about lately. You go next.
Question number 2. How did you get such hot wives?
That was
I'm pretty sure your wife asked that question.
She did.
But
by the grace of God.
No, you're accurate. Bro, I don't even know.
Yeah, we're not.
Like, Janelle is way out of my league.
Same.
I have no idea. I tried to lock her down early. We met in high school, so I was like, all right, that's the one. I got to make sure she doesn't see anybody else after this point. Like, she's only looking at me. So you lock her in early. That way she thinks she can't do better.
Yeah.
And then you got her. That's it.
And then how'd that work out for you?
Pretty well. We're still married. I think every day she realizes she can do better, and then every day I'm just like, nope, you can't do better than me. I'm the best you can get. You have to like slowly chip away at their self-esteem,
Yeah.
but not enough to make it bad. I'm just kidding. No, I'm totally just kidding. Truly, like I said, Janelle was the female version of you.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of like magnetic to each other, I guess.
Yes. Books was, I think, my way in with Jess.
You just bought books.
Yeah, I mean, we're in our office right now recording this.
1, 2, 3, 4 full bookshelves that are at least 5.5, 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She loves books, and there's more in our room. More shelves.
No, this is literally just the office books. There's more in the room. There's more in the living room.
In the garage.
In the babies' rooms. There's more in the garage.
Oh, there's a lot.
I've watched you guys give books away. So yeah, there's so many books.
All right, last question. Aaron, our friend Aaron asked, best Star Wars characters from all mediums, shows, movies, video games, etc. Let's narrow it down to 2.
Ahsoka Tano.
Bro, that was my
number 1.
Oh, that's my number 2.
Ooh.
She's my number 2.
No, she's definitely my number 1. She had such a massive character development.
Yeah.
She had such a huge impact on Star Wars, and it was only from the show Clone Wars.
Amazing.
She wasn't in any of the movies,
Yes.
but you can see the way the writers put in the ripple effects that she had.
Freaking Dave Filoni, man.
I actually sent you a link earlier today. I don't know if you saw it.
The 4-hour?
Yeah, there's like a 4-hour cut of Revenge of the Sith where the director of the 4-hour cut spliced in parts of Clone Wars.
Yes.
And you can see her character development and her effect on the Star Wars universe. And now they're bringing her back into the new series and movies and shows that they're releasing. I'm so pumped. She's my favorite character.
Now that might change.
I want my daughter to grow up to be like her.
Oh, heck yes. Now that might change with this new show. Like, get me wrong, I love Ahsoka Tano. However, my number 1 is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I just love the dude. He is flawed, but he is vigilant and loyal, and he's been through so much loss, and yet he was still able to sacrifice and to do what he had to for the sake of goodness. And he if you watch a Clone Wars, he had a romantic interest that he gave up, but he would have possibly committed to if she would have asked. And it's just he was just really loyal, but also super not aggressive when it came to people and as a Jedi. And so
I really like Obi-Wan. I'd put him as my number 2 as well. Just because he picked an ideology and he stuck with it.
Yeah.
But the way that he handled it evolved with new knowledge, and with every experience he had, it changed a little bit. Yeah. As you can see in episode 1, the first time we're introduced to Obi-Wan, as far as time-wise goes anyway, he was a young Jedi, and he fought for everything that the Jedi Order was. He followed the rules to the T. And then you see, like, again, back to Clone Wars, you see, he had a romantic interest.
Right.
Jedis aren't supposed to have romantic interests. He kind of let some things slide. Like, he knew about Anakin and Padme, and he let that go.
For sure.
Because he didn't see the harm in it until it was too late. Once it was too late, though, he reacted in the best way that he knew how. So anytime he gained knowledge, he grew. He actually, probably in the best way, shows what this podcast is. There is always more.
Man.
Boom.
Dude,
Full circle.
That is a brilliant way to conclude this episode. And Chris, this has been absolutely amazing and
I've had a blast.
And guys, look, we're just gonna end this because I talk way too much, and but we've had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for listening, and we really cannot wait to do another one of these and to hear from you. And so make sure you ask us your questions. Make sure you reach out to us. Use the Force, and
don't use the Force. I'm not Force sensitive. We won't feel those questions. Send them in our comments. Send them in an email.
Right.
Text us if you have our numbers. Yeah, that's going to be pretty much it.
Yeah. All right, guys. We love you. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Always More podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, share, like, and rate on whatever your platform of preference is. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Always More Pod and ask your question using hashtag AskChrisAndTim. If you'd like to support the podcast and feed into Chris and Tim's caffeine addiction, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/alwaysmorepod. For further information and to contact Chris or Tim, you can email them at alwaysmorepodcast@gmail.com.
go keep going with it.
Yeah, you can edit this part out.
Yeah.